Beauty and the Beast. Across the world, there are countless Beauty and the Beast tales, from Italian and Chinese snake beasts to the Spanish wolfman. But the most famous literary version comes from Gabrielle-Suzanne de Villeneuve in 1740. In her version, Beauty is the youngest of 12, with 5 jealous sisters who despise her. When her father stumbles into the Beast's castle and steals a single rose, naturally, the Beast demands one of his daughters in payment. Beauty volunteers to go, certain she's marching to her doom. In the Disney version, the castle is full of servants transformed into job-specific appliances. But in the original, monkey butlers. And obviously having the monkeys talk would be too ridiculous. So they communicate through interpreter parrots. Yeah, I don't know either. Let's just continue, shall we? In this version, the Beast isn't just ugly. He's also cursed to be dim-witted, barely able to hold a conversation. Every night he asks Beauty to let him sleep with her, and every night she refuses. She then proceeds to dream of a handsome prince and a fairy who tells her to look past appearances. Gee, I wonder what that means. Beauty is in love with the dream prince, and clearly not the Beast. Still, she promises to return to him after visiting her family. But she doesn't come back at the agreed time, and when she finally arrives, the Beast is dying of grief. Overcome with guilt, she agrees to marry him, and finally lets him into her bed, and only then does he transform into the prince from her dreams. And they lived happily ever after. Psych. First, the prince launches into an absurdly long backstory that nobody asked for. There is, however, one interesting detail. The Beast tells us about how he got turned into a monster, and it was because he once rejected an ugly fairy's love, and she cursed him in return. Kind of ironic, huh? The Three Little Pigs. Disney's 1933 animated short film, The Three Little Pigs, is a cheery, silly symphony about 3 pig brothers, a goofy wolf, and a happy little song. Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf? That became a Depression-era anthem for optimism. The pigs dance, play music, and outwit the wolf with slapstick charm. The worst thing that happens is when the wolf dresses up as a racial stereotype, or when he gets a sore backside from falling into a pot of boiling water before running away, tail between his legs. But in Joseph Jacobs' 1890 version, the wolf doesn't just scare the first 2 pigs. He huffs and he puffs until the first house of straw collapses, and he eats the first pig. Then he huffs and he puffs at the second house made out of sticks until it collapses, and he devours the second pig as well. The third pig built a brick house, and no matter how much the wolf huffs and puffs, he can't blow it down. So the crafty wolf tries to meet the pig at a turnip field, an apple orchard, and a fair. But the pig outsmarts him every time by getting there early. Finally, the wolf climbs down the chimney, straight into a boiling pot. But unlike Disney's wolf, who limps away, this one is boiled alive. And the third pig eats him for dinner, celebrating, knowing he avenged his brothers. Little Red Riding Hood. Turns out, Disney already had an extended universe in the 30s. Disney's short movie, Little Red Riding Hood, is basically a crossover with the 3 Little Pigs. Practical Pig warns her not to take the shortcut, but she ignores him, and the other 2 pigs drags her along, and they get stalked by the big bad wolf in a very bad Fairy Queen disguise. The wolf assault Little Red Riding Hood and her grandmother, and the pigs save them by putting popcorn seeds and hot coals down the wolf's pants. He runs off and they all sing, "Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf?" But Charles Perrault's 1697 version, not so sing-along friendly. Little Red Riding Hood meets the wolf in the woods, and she tells him where she's going. The wolf tricks her into picking flowers while he goes to her grandmother's house. He swallows Grandma whole, dresses up in her clothes, and waits in her bed. When Little Red Riding Hood finally arrives, she comments on the big ears, big eyes, and big teeth. And then the wolf leaps out and eats her whole. And the wolf lies down for a nice nap. And that's it. The end. But the brothers Grimm weren't done. In their 19th century telling, a passing hunter slices the wolf open, and Little Red Riding Hood and Grandma crawls out, somehow still alive, and they all fill the wolf's belly with heavy stones. Then they sew him back up. The wolf wakes up, gets thirsty, staggers to a well, falls in, and drowns. And that is the end. The Little Match Girl. When I first started researching this list, I assumed this H.C. Andersen classic was way too dark for Disney. Surely they'd never touch it. Turns out, I was wrong. Disney made a true adaptation of Andersen's saddest story as part of their canceled Fantasia 2006 project. The only real change? The setting was moved from Denmark to pre-revolution Russia. The story is short, simple, and utterly heartbreaking. On a freezing New Year's Eve, a poor young girl wanders the snowy streets, trying to sell matches, but no one buys them. Barefoot, starving, and afraid to go home to her abusive father, she huddles in an alley for warmth. She freezes so terribly, so she strikes a match. The fire burned so wonderfully, warming her fingers, and in the tiny flame, she sees the most magical glowing stove. But the fire soon burns out, and she is back in the cold. She lights another match, and she sees a feast of roast goose running towards her. How wonderful! But yet again, the flame goes out. She flicks another, and she sees a towering Christmas tree lit with thousands of candles. How beautiful! But the flame goes out again. Freezing again, she strikes one more, and this time her deceased grandmother appears in the flame. The only person who ever loved her. Desperate to keep her, the girl lights the whole bundle of matches. She begs her grandmother to take her away, and together they rise up to God. By morning, passers-by finds her little frozen body with a faint smile on her face. They pity her, never knowing she left this world in her grandmother's arms. The end. The Princess and the Frog. Disney's The Princess and the Frog is a jazzy 1920s New Orleans fairy tale where a hard-working waitress kisses a cursed prince, turns into a frog herself, and the two hop through bayous and musical numbers until love breaks the spell. It's charming, upbeat, and the worst thing that happens in this fun story is when the evil voodoo villain gets his soul dragged to hell by shadow demons. Okay, that's actually pretty dark. Anyway, the original tale, The Frog Prince by the Brothers Grimm, begins when a spoiled princess drops her golden ball down a well. A frog offers to fetch it, but only if she promises to be his friend. She agrees and then bolts the second she gets her ball back. The next day, the frog knocks at the castle door. Her father, the king, scolds her for breaking her promise and insists she honor her word. So she has to eat dinner with the frog while he slurps from her plate. Then he demands to sleep in her bed. She refuses, but the king scolds her again, and she reluctantly lets the frog hop onto her bed. Now, the frog jumps around on the bed, demanding they both sleep in it. And in the popular English translation, the princess kisses the frog and poof, he's a prince. But in the actual Grimm's version, she gets so disgusted with his frogness that she hurls him against the wall, and then he falls to the ground and turns into a prince. So the king is vindicated and the young couple marry. The end. So, if it stands between the frog wall smash romance and having your soul consumed by voodoo spirits, I think Disney might actually be the darker one here. Fine, you win this round, Disney. Aladdin. Disney's Aladdin is a from rags to riches romance with catchy songs, a sassy blue genie, and a happy ending that leaves the bad guy stuck in a lamp. But the original, it's not even set in Arabia. It's in China. The story of Aladdin is part of the 1001 Stories in the Arabian Nights, a collection of Arabian folklore. Aladdin is a lazy kid living in one of the cities of China, which, for some reason, has a sultan and exclusively Muslim citizens. Then, a mysterious sorcerer from North Africa shows up claiming to be Aladdin's long-lost uncle. He isn't. He just needs Aladdin to crawl into a booby-trapped cave and fetch a magical oil lamp. Aladdin gets the lamp, but the sorcerer double-crosses him, leaving him trapped. That is until Aladdin accidentally rubs a magic ring while praying, and a genie pops out to save him, teleporting him home. Turns out the lamp has an even more powerful genie, one who grants Aladdin riches, a palace, and the Sultan's daughter. Things go great until the sorcerer comes back, and he tricks the princess into giving him the magical lamp by offering a seemingly better model. The princess falls for it, and the sorcerer teleports the entire palace to Africa. Aladdin uses the lesser genie to follow them, kills the sorcerer, and gets everything back. Then, the sorcerer's evil brother shows up disguised as a healing old woman. The princess lets him move in with them, but the genie warns Aladdin, and then he kills the sorcerer. And that's it. Aladdin then succeeds the Sultan and reigns for many years, leaving behind him a long line of kings. The end. Babes in the Woods. Disney's Babes in the Woods from 1932 is yet another silly symphony. It is basically a fairy tale mashup, part Hansel and Gretel and part English legend. In this version, Hansel and Gretel find a dwarf/gnome village, gets kidnapped by a candy house witch who turns children into animals. Luckily, the dwarfs stage a rescue, the kids whip up an antidote, and the witch falls into her own cauldron, turning her to stone, and everyone cheers. But the original English legend, Babes in the Woods, published in 1595, is much less dwarfs and happy endings, and much more bleak child tragedy. It tells of two orphaned children left in their uncle's care. The uncle, eager for their inheritance, hires ruffians to kill them. However, one relents, so he kills his partner instead, and abandons the children in the woods with a promise to return. But he never does. The children then wander the forest until they succumb to hunger and thirst, collapses, and dies. Then, their little bodies are gently covered with leaves by robins. And, yeah, that's it. I mean, sure, the wicked uncle meets a miserable fate. He loses his wealth and his sons, but that's little comfort to the kids, who are still quite dead. In newer, sanitized versions, the kids are taken straight to heaven. In the original one, their little bodies just stays very, very quiet. Alice in Wonderland. Disney's Alice in Wonderland is a whimsical fever dream of talking animals, mad tea parties, and a girl who learns that logic has no place in Wonderland. And the original Lewis Carroll novel? Surprisingly similar. Almost identical, in fact. Good job, Disney. So this time, the darkness doesn't come from the source material itself. It comes from its author. Lewis Carroll was a mathematics lecturer with a passion for photography, wordplay, and the company of little girls. His inspiration for Alice was Alice Liddell, the young daughter of a family he befriended. Carroll took her and her sisters on rowing trips, told them stories, and photographed them in creepy costumes. Oh, and over half of Carroll's entire portfolio depicted young girls, some only wearing their birthday suits. In Victorian England, this was brushed off as artistic appreciation. Today, it's almost impossible not to see it as predatory. Rumors persist that Carroll wanted to marry Alice when she was just 11, which is speculated to be the reason that his once close relationship with her family abruptly ended. No evidence ever proved Carroll guilty of anything, but once you know about his fascination with the real Alice, the whimsical nonsense of Wonderland starts to feel a lot less innocent. Alright, so that was the Disney Origins, Part 3. Let me know in the comments which one you think is the darkest and why. Thanks for watching. Cheers.